Hey guys, it is me again. It's Ashley again. It's Phoebe again.
I'm back.
We're here with the lovely Phoebe Hagen. She's stealing Ashley's charm.
She can have it.
Ashley's loading her charms out today. Ashley, you can have a charm too.
Oh, thank you. Where's yours, Adam? Where's yours?
Is it this one?
Yeah, it's too much fun with the sound effects.
We've been playing with the sound effects this morning. We're getting nothing accomplished.
That's amazing.
So I'm in the office till like 9 on Mondays. And I'm like, I don't know. I only had like 10 check-ins. I don't know why I'm here till 10 o'clock at night.
Playing with the decks.
So what's our podcast today about, Ashley?
So, Phoebe here is the expert at posing, and it's kind of the hot topic these days, and it's super important. And I wanted to kind of get into the subject of posing and presenting your best in general. So not only are we going to find out a little more about Phoebe, but also posing and how to display confidence on stage, and it definitely helps. So if you guys can remember, about what was it, a year ago that you were on a podcast last, or is it longer?
I think it was longer because I came here in May time. Or was it before? Yeah, I came here in May time last year, 2021. And then I came here right before the Arnold's UK as well for like 2 weeks. But I think we filmed in May.
Okay.
So it was over a year ago.
Yeah. So, she's not a stranger to this podcast, but she's here training here till the Olympia. So you're in good hands.
I've already been here. How long have I been here now? 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks now.
But you keep leaving us.
I know.
Yeah.
I just
Phoebe
got off
Phoebe
a
leaves
flight.
too much.
She just got off a flight.
I just got off a flight about 2 hours ago, coming back from Florida. So
Last
you were
time
watching
she was
the
here.
hurricane show,
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Isn't that's such a terrible name for the show, considering
I think it was just bad timing.
Bad timing on that one.
It was always called that, but it was just so hard.
The timing of that sucks, But the 2020 Pandemic Pro was awesome. Phoebe always leaves us. This time she's staying put for the most part.
Yeah, it feels very real now. Now I'm like, I have no trips planned until the Olympia, so I'm literally here. So it's under 8 weeks out now.
Yeah, like 7.5 weeks out to Olympia. Oh my gosh. Well, it's good that you're here because the Olympia is in Vegas this year. So tell the audience where you're from and where you've been staying and what you've been up to in this off season leading up to the Olympia here.
Well, I think so. Obviously I qualified for the Olympia 2021 Arnold Classic through the Arnold Classic UK, which was absolutely like my favorite show like ever. Obviously you won it this year and then I won it last year, and it was just such a great moment. It was a great show in general, and it was great to be home. So that was how I got qualified. And then since kind of then we've kind of been obviously in an improvement phase. Mainly I've been focusing on the portal, the business, everything like that, and making sure that I can build it up a little bit more before I came here to pretty much be in prep in general the whole time, if that makes sense. Mainly what I've been doing is focusing on the portal and obviously getting ready for the Olympia, which is really, really exciting.
So give us a little bit of info about the posing portal. I know we mentioned it last podcast, but we can't assume everyone's going to listen to every single podcast, remember? So
no, we absolutely can't assume that. And if you guys... If there's 157, get to work.
So if you want to give us a little rundown of your business, the posing portal, which you have displayed here on your little jacket here.
Yeah, of course. So the posing portal is a online subscription based website where you have tutorials on there on how to pose. You've got a lot of tips through me and my coaches as well, giving you all the information there is to know about bikini and wellness, which is something that obviously, I'm based in Bikini and I love the wellness category, and I pose a lot of wellness girls as well. And we're slowly going to advance onto more and more categories and introduce some male categories and all that type of thing soon. So it's really, really exciting. But yeah, it's an online subscription site where you have different levels and obviously you can kind of pick which level you can kind of get access to and everything like that. So there's posing assessments, there's booking systems, there, like I said, tutorial videos. So there's loads of stuff, and there's going to be a lot of stuff coming in 2023 as well. That's new. I can't wait.
Very
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Very cool. So basically, you know your stuff.
Yeah, I love. To be fair, I was never a good poser though. This is the funny thing. Like I got into bodybuilding through cheerleading, and I was always put at, like cheerleading. I was always put at the back of the the dance routines. Like I was not coordinated whatsoever. I was really, really bad at it. And then even coming into bodybuilding, wasn't a great poser, but you know, we always progress, and that's the main thing. So yeah.
So what was it that kind of flipped the switch for you that you turned into probably, I would say, the best poser I know, at least? I mean,
So nice.
I know it's a subjective statement and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is she not the best poser you've ever seen?
Pretty solid.
She is smooth as butter.
It's pretty rare that I'm making adjustments on your posing.
Yeah, it's like, how would you, it's like hard to.
Well, it's just, it's really like, it's like push a little harder, don't push as hard. Like, it's like based on conditioning. It's not really like, I've never been like, oh, that's like change the routine. It's like, how do you do that? Like, hey, could you come to posing class this Saturday, teach our girls?
Well, I don't know. I think it was definitely my first year. Like the main thing, I think when I first got into bodybuilding, I always thought it was just the body. Like you just had to do the diet, the training, and everything else was kind of not irrelevant, but I didn't understand the sport. And I think obviously now we've all realized that it is not just about the body. It is literally the overall package. And I think that was something that I found hard to understand at the beginning. And then I started to research it more. And actually you were one of the main people that I saw, that I was always like looking and being like, okay, how does she do this? How does she do that? So yeah, it was really cool to be able to progress in that way and try and get my overall package. And then when I started to find my groove with it and find my personality with posing, and then you just kind of progress from there.
Oh, awesome. Good stuff. So I would think that a lot of the flow of posing and how well your posing comes across has to do with confidence. So what advice would you give for somebody that deals with getting too nervous before going on stage or just lacks confidence in general? What would you tell a girl like that?
It's difficult because I always try and I always think that confidence comes from like within and how you feel about the body you're taking up there. So like if you feel like you're not confident with the body you're taking up there, you're not gonna present that, if that makes sense. So I feel like trying to make sure that before you even go on stage, pick out all the positives that you have gone through in a prep, making sure that you're happy with what you're taking up there. And that's gonna naturally seep through in your overall routine, if that makes sense. Like there's been many times where I know I haven't felt 100% confident with the way that I've looked on stage. I'm sure we've all gone through where we're like, I don't feel my best. And that kind of shows sometimes through posing because you're like, I know I'm not my best. But another tip is also fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
So you have to try and make sure that you don't show that kind of emotion. If you feel like, oh, I don't feel my best, don't show that to the judges. But yeah, my tip is mainly making sure that you pick out the positives of what you have gone through in this prep and making sure that you're aware that whatever happens, you have tried your hardest and there's only ways to get better, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as far as like being nervous, I mean, I don't know about you, Phoebe, but I still get nervous. Yes. I know Adam gets nervous watching us. Yeah. We all get nervous. And I think it's important to realize it's a totally normal thing. And in fact, I would be surprised if you didn't get nervous because to me, it almost seems like it's okay to be nervous because it shows you care. Yeah. Like if you didn't care, you'd be like, let's get this over with. Yeah. Like, you know,
you wouldn't enjoy the moments on stage. Like you've literally just put yourself through or gone through like months and months of hard work and, you know, putting yourself through that. And we enjoy the process, but you also want to reward yourself with giving your all up there. You know?
And it shows that it means something to you. So I always tell people it's okay to be nervous. It's just how you translate that nervous on stage. You can translate it into confidence. Perhaps you can translate it into like positive energy, but don't show that you're nervous, right? Yeah. So it's almost like, just like you said, fake it till you make it. If you are nervous, just be like, you know what? This is the moment I trained for. I worked so hard for this. I feel confident. Although I'm nervous, I'm a little bit shaky. I want to show the judges how much I enjoy being on stage and just show my best. Even if I have to fake it for the 5 minutes I'm on stage, just show the best confidence ever, positive energy. And I think sometimes people overthink too, is like if they stumble a little bit or they step just in the wrong spot, you can see them like fall apart after that. And it's like, I don't think people realize how common that is. Yeah. But the difference between people who mess up and it's noticeable versus the ones that don't is you move on from it quick, right? So no routine has ever been perfect for me, but sometimes my best routines, I maybe stepped just like a little bit wrong, but you know what? I quickly recovered from it and just didn't make it a thing. I didn't make it as noticeable because maybe the judges didn't even notice until you made it a thing. Yeah. When you start to break down and fall apart and you can tell like, oh, they lost it. Like they just got disoriented after that little mistake. They harp too much on it, and you just got to move on from it. You just got to, get back to it. And I think as well as long as you show that like you have good energy and that confidence, it doesn't matter if you made that little step wrong or flipped your hair wrong, or it doesn't matter.
Almost act like you not obviously were supposed to do it, but kind of like brush it off like it didn't happen. Like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that.
Yeah,
like,
they might not notice it.
Honestly, most of the time they aren't, especially if it's in your individual, they're probably going to see a good amount of girls after you anyway and would have forgotten it by then anyway. Yeah. So it's really not something to dwell on and be like, oh my God, I've done this wrong. Because I know I've been in that position where I've like done my routine, done it a little bit off, gone off stage and be like, no, I did it so wrong. This was this. And then people have to calm me down and be like, okay, no, you were fine. That's good. And it's how you learn and grow.
Exactly. I love it. So why don't we go into some common posing mistakes that you see? So you definitely have the eye for this. And I know Adam does as well. So between you two, what do you guys notice?
The sinister look. I've seen his videos.
What do you guys?
My friends have called me.
What do you guys notice the most with like posing mistakes? Something that really sticks out to you. And I'll say something right off the bat, because this is something that I'm like, I hate seeing it, and I don't want to call it a mistake, but I hate seeing it. Is the trend? It's not as much as I've seen. In the beginning of the year, it was so common. Like the girls that like kind of feel up themselves or like feel like grab underneath their butt cheek or something. I hate it with a passion.
It's like the swipe,
the butt swipe, and then swiping up your midsection. I hate it so much. I'm like, oh, that is such a cringe moment. I hate it. It's so cringy. I hate it so freaking much. You have no idea. It's less of a thing now. I think it was like a thing that happened, and they're it's dying off. Yeah. Well, but for me, that's the biggest posing mistake I see, because I notice it and I hate it so much.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
The first time I saw, I was like, I was like, what? I was like, whoa,
where did this come from?
This thing. And then I started seeing it more, and I'm like, no, this is not going to be a thing. And then I went to a couple posing seminars with like chairmans and head judges, and they were like, hey guys, like,
yeah,
and it was funny because the judges that were there, I'm not going to say their names, they were saying, hey, like, you coaches, tell your athletes to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to say it, because then it's like we're directly telling the people and calling the people out who are doing it. So we don't want to do that, but we don't want to see it. Like, so if you girls are out there and you're a toucher, the judges, and this is coming from the important judges that are like the big judges, they told the coaches, hey, like, tell your athletes we don't want to see that. We were not going to specifically come out and say that because it looks like we're targeting people, but we do not want to see that.
Yeah, I feel like it just makes it a little, I don't know, a little bit too much on stage sometimes. I like it to be a little like I think it needs to be just a little bit more like toned down for sure.
Yeah, and you got to realize that, I mean, if it's bikini, half the judges at least are going to be women, so like it's not that appealing. Yeah. But what are some other posing mistakes you guys see?
She hates it so much.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate it. I mean, I'm glad it's dying off, but holy crap, I was just like, no.
Well, I was happy when we went to that posing seminar, and then the judges were like, they're like, hey, you guys need to be the ones that say it, because we can't, like, it looks like we're calling people out.
And I also feel like if they're touching the glutes, like, you're not like, that's something you want to show off to the judges. So if you're like touching them, and it's like distracting, if that makes sense. So it doesn't make any sense to do it really. But no, one thing I would say I'd seen a lot is like a lot of arm movement. I feel like that's a very common one where people will move their arms, or specifically bikini girls will move arms above kind of like the chest area.
That's what I say too. Never let it go above your clavicle. Your hands, your fingers should never go above your clavicle.
Yeah, because it's then
you're flying away on stage. You know what I mean?
About to say that. I was like, you're gonna look like some sort of bird or something like that.
Yeah, you get a photo and you're like this,
and you don't want that. You want to try and make sure that it looks nice and classy. It looks nice and precise, and it's not kind of all over the place, because it looks messy otherwise. So yeah, I think that's one of my biggest ones that I've seen anyway. What's yours?
Yeah, the arm one is a lot. I think that girls are trying to add too much to the posing routine too.
Yes.
And there's like, they'll be like, okay, we've seen you already. Like, you're good. Like, we don't need you on stage for a minute and 40 seconds. Like, that's a little crazy, you know? So that's the way I'm happy and I'm not about the whole posing timing thing. And I think that, so if you guys have been following, like, some of the shows have had posing timing for bikini, and there was some shows that were too short, like
for
the routines. Yeah. So 20 seconds was at like the San Antonio, which I felt was a little fast. You know, the girls were pretty much rushing, and they were saying, okay, girls, thank you. Like, okay, thank you. They were rushing them off the stage. But that is a direct result of people taking too long on stage, you know, and it's sucks that those girls that were doing like these, you know, minute 50-second posing routines screwed it up for the girls who had their 45-second posing routines. But we have to look at this realistically. You know, when you look at a pro bodybuilder, they get 60 timed seconds on stage for their whole routine. They have, you know, front lat spread, overhead abdominals, front double bicep, back lat spread, back double bicep, right? Most muscular. They have all these poses, and they have the quarter turn. So they have like 11 poses or something around those ranges. And Bikini has front and back. You know, how are you taking longer than a bodybuilder to display their physique when you have 2 poses and they have 11? Right? That doesn't make any sense. So so I get it. I do get the argument, you know, especially at the big shows like the Olympia where there's like 70 girls there. It's going to be, if every girl had a 2-minute posing routine, we'd be there like, you know, till next year's Olympia. So
well, I always kind of say, like, especially for amateurs and pros, always try and leave the judges wanting more in the routine kind of aspect of things. Like obviously show them the best assets and stuff, but like, don't show them everything. Because again, like obviously we did the seminar with Sandy recently and she said like, we're looking for flaws, which is obviously, you know, everyone kind of knows what the judges are looking for, but they're looking for flaws. So the longer you're up there, the longer they're going to be trying to find things. And if you're showing off every single thing, then they're going to be like, okay, cool. I can see this now. I can see this now. I can see this. And the more time, I know it sucks though, because, you know, we have worked so hard and we are pros and we want to try and show off everything, but try and save it maybe for the comparisons where you are going to be up there for a lot longer. Show off your best kind of, I guess, poses within the routine aspect of things and then really showcase it off in your comparisons, I guess.
Yeah. And I think it would be wise to also have like a backup shortened version of a routine. If you are in a scenario where you're at a show and they're like, okay, we got to condense this to however many seconds, because you never know when you're in that situation and it might happen at the Olympia. I mean, it would make sense to have a time limit at the Olympia since there will be like 70 girls, which is crazy. But you know, even us as athletes, we don't want to stand backstage on our heels that long. And gosh, I don't want to go to bed at 2 a.m. because like, you know what I mean? So it would definitely make sense for you to have 2 versions of your routine. And just like what Adam said, it's just like, you know, there's 2 poses in there. So why are girls doing like the same pose 4 times? Like, okay, we got your front pose. It's solid. 4 times, 6 times maybe. And it's just a lot of repetition. And I understand you kind of want to stand out, but maybe that's not the way. And I will say this, not to be biased, but I think I have the shortest posing routine in the whole IFBB. I don't even walk.
It went from 43 to 47 and now it's at 51, I think now. And so it's like still really short. I mean, for a pro posing routine, it's really short.
I don't walk to the front or back, or I don't back walk, I should say. So I think I've tried to back walk like twice this year, just because we felt like we needed to. But you know, after talking to some judges and just like reflecting on it, like I don't need to do that. So I just kind of stay in my spot. And I think I'm the only pro that doesn't walk back.
Well, I think that's good because like you're showing off your best poses. And like, again, everyone kind of does the walk to the back anyway. So it's like, and they're probably going to show off a walk to the back in a comparison round anyway. So they're going to see it at some point if they obviously do it. So it's not the worst thing, you know. I think it's good.
I think honestly what happens is girls get lost in what they're trying to do in that posing routine. And so to clarify this for all you out there, especially the pros, because this really more applies to the pros because they have an unlimited time frame, is that all you're trying to do in that initial posing routine is get in the first call out. That's all you're trying to do. Get in the first call out. They're going to compare you to the best people that are there that day. Whoever else is in that first call out, they're going to turn you and find all your flaws, whatever. But when the longer you're on stage, the more of the wow effect you lose. Right when you walk from behind the curtain, if you're on point, the judges are like, wow, she looks dope today. That girl's like, she looks great, right? And you see this look on their face, or like, and they'll hit each other like, hey, she looks pretty good. You know, you see the judges do all this stuff. They're pretty bad about like holding their feelings back. They're like, they'll look up and be like, hey, she looks pretty good, right? Like they talk. If you could see them, like I'm always right behind the judges. So you always see them like hit each other like, hey, she looks pretty good, right? So you have that wow effect, right? And it happens when someone walks out and they're on point and you're like, whoa, and they hit their pose. But then that dies off, like with anything, you know, like a firework. You see the firework go off and you're like, wow. And then like 4 minutes into the fireworks show, you're like, okay, it's another firework, right? And it's the same thing with like bikini and bodybuilding. Yeah, you know, I just came up with it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good analogy.
You know?
I like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think I've been guilty of it too, like feeling pressured to almost add on to my routine just because everyone else is doing it. I've been there. I've felt that pressure to do it. And I think we've even tried to do that before. Yeah. And it's just like, you know what? I don't know. A part of me is just like, I don't want to feel like selfish taking up other people's times, I guess. I don't know. So I just kind of like, you know, I just condense into the best poses. I don't know. I condense it to the best poses, and then I just, you know, I'm more to the point. I'm like, let's get this is my front
she's the
pose.
meat and potatoes of it.
I love how you're like thinking of others. Like, I don't want to take up too much
Well,
time.
I'm more of the
like,
judges. Like, you know, gosh, they have to sit there for so long.
No, I know.
You know, I the judges are just like there. God bless them. They have to look through all these routines, but I'm just like, man, I feel bad.
Well, they told, so that where that goes is, I was told by the judge that the longer you're on stage, the more they stop looking at the wow effect, and the more they start looking at the what's wrong effect.
Yeah.
So she said the longer you're on stage, the more you're turning around front and back and hitting these transition poses where you don't see your best, the more I'm finding the flaws. Mm-hmm. So if you come out, you wow them, and you get off the stage, like, you know, you're still that initial firework, you know? And if you're taking 2 minutes long, you're now the only thing exciting is the end of the fireworks show, right? Because that's what it is. That's what fireworks are. The first couple fireworks, and then it gets a little bit more, and you're like, cool. And then the rest is just fireworks, and then the end's like this big celebration, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like that's what it is, you know.
True. And I will say as well, like, you know, when getting feedback from judges, I've had feedback from my posing before. Not one of them has said it needs to be longer. If anything, it would be like, oh, angle yourself this way more, or position your foot low more this way, or open up more, anything like that. But it's never been, oh, your routine is too short. They've never criticized that. And even Sandy was like, yeah, it's a perfect amount of time. It's fine. So you know, it's good to hear that, because I think a lot of people are pressured to add in these poses and the walks, even if they don't want to really, you know? So I'm just like, you know, just getting to the point here with my routine.
Yeah, and I think even like a lot of new pros as well, like people that have just got their pro cards and they're going straight into a kind of a pro debut, they kind of feel the pressure as well. Like, I've worked with a lot of people that have got their pro cards going into their pro routine. They're like, I want to add this. And I say to them, like, let's try and find your, like, the main thing. Even in that amateur routines, they want hair flicks, they want shoulder shrugs, they want loads of different types of like cool transitions. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that works. We can kind of try and add it in. But some of the times it's like you said, just keeping it nice and simple and making sure that you're not doing too much, because it can become overwhelming on stage when you're doing that much as well, especially for a pro like debut, because you're going to be nervous anyway. So trying to add and change loads of different things, it becomes very, very difficult. So trying to add things in like small, like as you go on, like when you like feel more comfortable, I think that's probably better.
Yeah,
I think that's the only time Ashley's really like lost it in her pro routine was when we added too much that one time, and that was it.
Oh yeah. I remember one time especially, like I tried like a new routine like altogether, and I was practicing it, and I thought I was good enough to like, it was good to go. And then, like, what was it? 2021 last year.
Clash.
Yeah. I just tried to add on a whole bunch of stuff just to make it more like, you know, lengthy.
Really, it was because we were following the trends. Yeah. Like we were trying to add more time, add more walks. Like we were trying to do these things that we really didn't need to do.
Yeah. And then it turns out like on stage, I totally blanked. It was like this, I practiced it a lot. And when I got on stage, I stepped foot on stage and I'm like, I forgot everything.
And because you're used to doing something for so long, and you added things that, like you said, weren't necessary. Yeah. So you're like, okay, cool. My body's not used to that, even though you practice loads, but nerves might have got to you or something like that, and things happen. So I feel like sometimes adding in small, like literally one change is enough.
That's what I do. When I do switch things up a little bit, it's like a little bit at a time, because you know, I'm afraid of that happening again. I will say, like, that one show, I had the worst routine I've ever had in my life. Such a cringe moment. Like, you would think that was like my first freaking pro show or something. It was bad.
It's a good lesson for everyone out here. Like how we just talked about pro routines, like your first pro show, trying to do all these things. And like, if Ashley's having a blanks out on it, like, your odds are pretty decent that you're not going to nail it if you're adding too much your first time.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has those moments where they kind of like, you know, not like massively screw up, but like little things like happen. You're like, okay, cool. I'm just going to learn from that now. Like it's not like a bad thing.
Exactly. So, you know, that's how you learn and progress. I mean, if I didn't, maybe if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be practicing posing as much as I do now. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's not necessarily, just expect there to be mistakes, you know, especially in your first few shows, but there will always be mistakes. Even now I have like little mistakes I make here and there, even with all my experience, and maybe it's something minor and you don't notice it, but maybe I notice it. So, you know, you just take that into consideration. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just realize you're going to learn from it. Don't make that mistake again. So, you know,
and I think I'm going to jump in real quick. If you guys are following us on Instagram, you could feel free to throw your questions or comments in, because I have one here that I think is good to address. We're talking about the hands thing, like going above the clavicle and like their hands like waving all over the place. And I had a comment here that said the girls in Europe really, really do that, and the judges have always rewarded it. And here's the thing, and this is where it gets out of control, because you'll have a girl, and it does happen. I agree with you. It happens in Europe all the time. The girls over there are just throwing arms around.
They're flying away.
I mean,
they're going to fly all the way over here.
Remember, it's also because in Europe we have a lot of different federations as well. Yeah. So those other girls have probably come from other federations. They've seen things, and then one person, like I think you were just about to say, one person does it and it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Then people start to follow it, like, oh, I kind of liked what she did, I'm going to try it. And then they get rewarded, and then it happens like over and over, if that makes sense.
It's a little crazy over there sometimes. I was like, did I sign up for the karate tournament? The girls throwing their arms. Karate. Look like kung fu fighting over there. Just hands everywhere. It was a dangerous place up there. No, and then so what happens is this: a girl will do that. She'll get rewarded not for throwing her hands around and arms around. She gets rewarded because her physique was awesome that day. And they overlooked the posing not being typical, right? And you could do that. If your body is that awesome and you're just destroying everyone in the physique, like you could probably just walk on stage and be fine. Like it is still a body competition. But when it's splitting hairs and you're at the Olympia and you're, you know, between first and second place, it's like between first and third last year, it was like a couple points. Like it's so close. Yeah, that's going to matter at that point. It's going to matter if you're going for a pro card and you're really close to the girl next to you, and one girl's throwing her hands around and one girl's posing like pro ready already. The judge is going to look at that girl and say, hey, she's ready for the pro league now. She's not ready for the pro league yet, so I'm going to give it to her, even though they're so close and I really could toss a coin, right? And so that's how these things happen, and then it gets out of control because then one girl did it, she won. It's like, oh, that's what I need to do now. And then another girl does it, and now all of a sudden 20 girls are doing it, and then everyone's doing it.
That's what happened to the backwalk. Now everyone does it, but you don't need to. Yeah. It's just somebody did it, and then it became a trend, and now people think they have to, and you don't.
Well, the problem with it, too, is that when you go from the European market and you're over there, and let's say there's a lot of girls doing that, and then you get to the U.S. market, and all the judges are like, they're like, you know, we're set in our ways with our posing already. So when a girl comes over here and does that, it's so awkward. You know, it's not like she's the only girl doing it on stage. And then the judges are like, what's that? You know, why she's throwing her arms around? And so she loses a whole show of progress because the judges out here, they're like, you got to really chill with your arms and the posing, or chill with this, you know? And the girls, they're like, well, I was doing good with it over there. No, it's not that you were doing good with it over there. It's that your body was so much better than everyone's. You're going to do good no matter what you did. But over here, when your body's aligned with everyone else's, that's going to hurt you, you know? So just so you guys know, that's how these things happen. But if you guys have any other comments we could jump into, throw them on Instagram. And sorry to cut you off on that.
Yeah, no worries. I also have some listener questions from our one podcast that some people had for Phoebe as well. So I'll make sure to get to those as well. So on the flip side of things, what is the first thing you notice about somebody's presentation in a positive way? Like what makes somebody stand out amongst a sea of girls with their presentation?
Honestly, generally, for me, it's like the simplicity of it. So like when someone's just standing there and there's no movement, like they're just standing like in their front pose and there's no movement, there's no like, you know, trying to show the judges that they're there. They're just standing in there nice and still. Transitions are nice and clean. When they walk on, it's not, I really like the effortless, like it's almost like she's doing that like so naturally, like it's not even forced or anything. Like obviously posing is supposed to look very natural anyway, but sometimes when you look at someone and it's just like they're floating, that's something that really stands out for me, that it just looks easy.
You look like you're floating.
There's no chair, which she's levitating.
I meant like on stage.
She's at yoga level 15.
No, I meant like in her presentation.
You said that comment when you came to watch Legions last year, and I was like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, you do. You look like you're just floating on the stage, like you're levitating, and like, like it's crazy how smooth you are. It's like,
I think that's my main thing I like seeing, when it's just, it looks very easy. It looks very, obviously we know it's not easy, but it looks so simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Slimple. She's thinking about prep. She's like, I got to get slim for this.
I had a glitch then. Oh my goodness. It just looks so simple, you know, and effortless. And that's, I think for me, I don't know, obviously I can't speak for the judges, but I feel like that sometimes also turns the judges' heads when it is just like we were talking about before. It's so simple. There's nothing else massively like really outstanding, like, oh, she's doing this move or this, that. When it's just the front pose, the back pose, but it's nice, classy, effortless. That's my favorite routine. Style of routine.
Yeah, I mean, in bikini, you know, we're not really supposed to look like we're flexing or rigid posing, right? So in bikini, even though you might tense up certain muscles depending on your physique, some people don't do it at all, but it should never look like you're tense. It should never look like you're flexed. So having that fluidity and just like you said, just very smooth transitions just really catches people's eye. I think it just looks effortless. So somewhere between like that, and I also think at the same time some people get a little too loosey-goosey with it too, where it's like an actual dance routine where it's like just a constant movement, right? Just always like a dance, like, so somewhere in between that, you know. But you never want to look like you're too rigid and stiff and flexing and tense, right? So it's really, it's like an art form, you know. You just like, you're kind of, you know, in position, but you're not really looking like you're trying that hard. You're just floating. It looks like you do this every day, just no effort.
Yeah.
I think you described it perfectly.
Yeah, like that's something that's always eye-catching. Like, obviously, don't get me wrong, there's some girls' routines and they do kind of a fancy, cool routine, and I'm like, or like a cool move, and I'm like, that actually looks really cool. But like, I would never think, oh, I need to do that, or I'm going to try that. I'd be like, okay, cool, that looks really good on them, but I probably won't look the same on me. And I find that's like you were talking about before about the trends. I find it happens a lot when one person does one thing and it just keeps going and everyone's like, I need to do that now because that looks really, really good. So yeah, I like just simple. Simple's good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know what catches me a lot is when it's always the initial walkout. You could see like you could just see the girl's confidence on them. Probably like the best one I see at this, and I mentioned her before, is like Malu when she walks out. I don't know if it was just that day and they played like the same song for her in the morning as they did on the night. It just happened to line up that way with the numbers. But it was like some like Latin song, and she's like she's from Brazil, and she just like kills the walk. And I was like, man, that right when she walked out, I was like, that is, you know, that's a walk right there, you know. So that initial, like when they walk off the stage with that energy, you know, that right when they pass the curtain, you know. So that's when I see it, and it really does the same thing we talk about. Like it does, that wow effect is a very short effect. It's like the first 10 seconds, you know, like, and you're like, wow, you know, and then it's just posing and posing. So I do think there is something to this whole timing thing, actually, you know.
I actually think like it could definitely not only having a long routine could not only just hurt you because they're looking for flaws. I think that you can get bored with it if it's too long. From the judge's perspective, just like, okay, all right. I've seen that like 6 times. Okay.
Oh, another back pose. That's a shocker.
Oh, look, it's the same pose again. You know what I mean? So just think of it in that perspective too. Not even if you hit all of your poses and they're all flattering on you, it's just like, okay, you know, like if we've seen it, okay, you know. So it's just, I do think it can get boring. So just keep that in mind. Keep it exciting, you know.
Yeah, I feel it's different. It's just a case of just being nice and simple, not overcomplicating things, and just doing what needs to be done, showing what needs to be shown, and then the judges will judge you on that.
Absolutely. Okay. So how does one develop or find their own style? Because there's different styles, you know? Some people are more bubbly. Some people are more elegant. Some people are more sexy. I would say you're more elegant, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you.
You're an elegant poser, I would say, just very statuesque.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's difficult because I think it is definitely a trial and error.
Yeah.
Like everyone, I mean, like what is your type of personality? That's where I kind of start, I guess. Because like sometimes people like they're like, I want to try and look really sexy on stage. I'm like, but if you feel like that's going to make you feel awkward on stage, that's also something like we were talking about before. Sometimes you can't fake that and it looks awkward, you know? So it's trying to find out what your personality is, what you feel comfortable doing as well, and then progressing from there and being like, okay, cool, I felt comfortable doing that on stage. Let's now add in maybe something else or try something different. And it's just a case of doing like a few different kind of, I guess, scenarios, a few different types of transitions, some different poses, and seeing what fits them best.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
But
not only just that, is this like the facial expressions
I
too,
was
like,
just about
you
to
know,
say, not overcomplicating it too much with just the posing, but everything else in between. So your hand movements, your footwork, your, like you said, facial expressions, and making sure that you're not doing too much, but finding what works for you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
do you have anything to add to that, Adam?
No, you guys did a very good job.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You did get, you know what I will mention, you got a shoulder compliment. Ashley, whatever Ashley gets a shoulder compliment. Is
I
that
can see it.
Hold on. Sound the alarms. Sound the alarms, Adam.
Someone
Sound the alarms. We got
Ashley
a
gets so
shoulder
excited when
compliment.
she gets a shoulder compliment.
Oh my God.
That's like,
Oh my God.
I don't know. If you had,
Why'd you get
Oh
so
my
excited when you
God.
get a shoulder compliment? Your shoulders are great.
she said Ashley's shoulders looking spicy. It's from Aaron.
Oh. Can we get a zoom in? Oh my God. I'm so excited right now.
That's how you make Ashley's day. If Ashley's having a bad day, just say,
No, they look so detailed.
I'm trying to get on your level, Phoebe. You know what
Oh,
I'm saying?
thanks.
she's been working her poor little shoulders. She's been working them so hard.
Like,
We've had a couple
development in the last
breakdowns.
year.
She's like, I don't know. I feel like they're not growing.
In the last year, they've grown so much.
I'm trying so
Training
hard
them,
out
we
here.
trained them so much this
So
year.
much.
I don't know.
They get all the attention, you know. If only they were as obedient as like my hamstrings, you know, or something, or my abs, you know, we would be great. We'd be good to go. But these
That's so
they're
funny.
quite
I think
stubborn.
they were just feeling neglected earlier in their life, and now you're giving them a lot of attention.
True, you know, they had a lot, you know,
They've had a lot of
legs had
attention.
a lot
Yeah,
of
Now
lately.
they're giving the rewards.
I
'cause
feel
they
like they're going to be arguing
feel-
with your hamstring because you're like, you know, the new girlfriend and the new they're like getting
that
more
could
attention
happen.
6 times a week. Hamstrings are jealous. You know, what about us? What about us? We had a
You
good
know?
thing here. Yeah, it's getting a little older. There's some struggles, but it's about effort.
It's about
Don't give up
effort.
on me for the new guy.
That's so funny. Well, thank you for that shoulder compliment. Sorry to distract everyone. I just got so
With the
excited.
sound the alarm when that happens.
I
I
know.
was like,
What do you have? A
I don't
sound
think
effect?
I have an alarm. I think I have just
cheering?
the sparkles.
No,
That's
cheering.
it. Cheering. Is it this one? Oh,
No, never mind.
shoulders. Ashley shoulder claps. Ashley shoulder claps.
There we go. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
That was chaotic. That was a ride.
Whew, yeah.
Just one shoulder compliment, we lose our
No,
shit.
no, we literally went off on one, didn't we?
Now I feel like we gotta give.
Oh my god,
Phoebe
no,
a
I'm covered. I'm all covered up. I'm all good. I'm so cold here. Like I came back from Florida, and obviously I'm freezing now. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but yeah, I'm freezing.
Yeah, temperatures in Vegas are now 70. It was 70 degrees. Yeah.
In the morning, it was below 60
Yeah.
this morning.
My
in the
air
early
conditioner is always on all day, and it's probably a really bad idea. Even when we leave the house, it's always, I know it's
morning. Probably open the windows now.
big-
Yeah,
Probably
just
open
open the
the
windows,
so
just turn
expensive.
off the car
And then-
aircon.
and then I just hate coming back when it's not temperature cooled. And then this is the first day where the air conditioner wasn't on. It wasn't working. And I was like, oh, it's lower than the temperature setting. Yeah, it's cold in the house.
My goodness gracious.
Isn't that crazy?
cold.
I know. So Vegas, for all you guys visiting the Olympia in Vegas, visiting the Olympia. in
Don't bring
December.
shorts.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
a little bit more chilly, but a lot
Yes.
better
Wear
than like the
coat.
Midwest.
Yeah, it's gonna get so weird too. Daylight savings is coming up, and I think that's when it starts to get dark super early, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna get so weird when it gets dark at 5. Oh, it feels like the day's
They're changing
over.
that next year. There's no more
Really?
daylight savings next year.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what the Senate agreed on it or something. There's not going to be any more daylight savings.
Is that only
I
for
guess-
Nevada?
No, it's like countrywide.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess the only
So
reason they had
strange.
daylight savings was for the farmers, so they could farm longer. Have you heard about that? Yeah, it's like I guess you kept they changed the hours so the farmers could be up. But I guess now they're like they just have lights. So that was like set way back in the day. So there's no reason to do daylight savings. I don't know. That's what I'm pretty sure I'm right. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what did I read that
Yeah,
right?
you're like,
am I getting pranked?
Is that correct? Is that actually correct? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. Anyway.
Anywho,
I was
back
like, anyway.
to the
random
posing.
facts. If you hang out with me long enough, you'll hear like the most random facts. It's my attempt to fool you into thinking I'm smarter than I am. All I know is about butts, lats, and shoulders.
Yeah, that's
like,
it. That is it.
It's like my comment. I think, girls like, what do you think I need to work on? Shoulders and glutes.
Yeah.
like every girl's
Exactly
shoulders and glutes. Yeah, just you know what you need more of? Shoulders and glutes.
Shoulders and glutes.
Bikini life.
Bikini life. That's what's up. So we have a question from one of our amazing podcast listeners, Courtney Goodell. And she wants to know, for posing, I would like to know good stretches to help with posing and tips on being confident on stage. So we already took care of the confidence part, but how about stretches? So some girls aren't as flexible, and I find that like a lot of times, especially in the back pose, is when they need to stretch the most. That really stiff, flat back some people have, where they might need to stretch a little bit, do some bridges or whatever. So what stretches do you suggest?
Well,
any kind of.
Yeah, I usually use a yoga wheel for typically, like a yoga wheel is just like this big kind of, self-explanatory. Just it's a big, I guess, plastic wheel with some cushioning on the inside, and you can lie on the back of it, and it helps kind of create that same positioning for what it would be for your back pose. So usually what I typically like to do and or suggest to my clients is kind of lie on that for around 20 to 30 seconds, really stretching out your back. Obviously relax, reset, and then do it again. Maybe do 3 to 5 kind of sets on that, 30 seconds, and kind of increase as time goes on. And try and obviously deep breathe when you're doing that as well. So it kind of replicates the same, I guess, positioning as a back pose, and obviously it then helps you, I guess, breathe through that as well, because it is kind of a painful process being in back pose and stretching your body in positions that don't want to be in. And then a good one for kind of front pose is kind of twisting, keeping your hips, I guess, in a straight motion, and then twisting your upper body in the motion or the way that your front pose is going to be twisted, and really trying to make sure that you keep your hips where they need to be. So whilst you're sitting down, so sit down on the floor, legs completely straight. And if you need to, obviously bring one of the knees up, but twist your upper body the way that you're supposed to be twisting whilst keeping your hips down on the floor, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's a really good one because it helps with the way that you're twisting. And again, same analogy, hold for 30 to 40 seconds, relax, reset, and do that 3 to 5 sets, and increase. And then another one generally is just posing stamina. So just going through all your poses and holding them like 30 seconds, face the back, 30 seconds, face forwards, and do that for like 3 sets. Yeah. So you can get used to being in those poses and it not feeling uncomfortable, because it is obviously, posing is such an uncomfortable process, especially if your body's not used to it.
Yeah, I think also you could probably benefit from some hip stretching as well, because some girls, you find that they can't, it's almost like they're unable to shift weight onto their hip because their hips are too tight or whatnot. Yeah. So I don't know if you or Adam had any tips on those types of stretches for the hips.
I feel like that one's going to be more just posing often. I feel like, right? I feel like just getting more comfortable posing and sitting into it more than anything. That and lower back stretches that you're kind of doing. Yeah, probably, right?
I feel like a few hip stretches, like I don't know the actual technical term for it, but I call it the kind of frog split. I don't like where you have obviously like you kind of stretch out your hips on the floor and just make sure that you're really like pulling into them just to loosen up the hips. I typically don't stretch out massively the hips like Adam was saying. It was mainly like the lower back and stuff. And like you said, going through the poses themselves and holding them for long periods of time so people can get used to them and just feel comfortable in them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So speaking of, endurance on stage, holding the poses, I think the muscle group that fatigues the most for a lot of girls, and it has something to do with them being nervous, is their core. You can tell when some girls are like fatiguing because you can see them breathing, like taking these big breaths. So do you have any tips for that? And I also kind of just to piggyback off that as well, because I get asked this a lot too, is like, what do you do with your core on stage? Some girls will try to flex their abs. Some will try to vacuum. Some will just try to stay tight and tall, which is what I've tried to do. I've tried to vacuum on stage before. It didn't turn out very well. Yeah. But what do you describe how to keep your core on stage and to keep it nice and tight?
I mean, I personally agree with what you're saying in terms of you stand nice and tall. Again, it depends on your body structure and obviously what everyone looks like and stuff. And I think everyone, obviously body shape is different, but I always try and think make sure that you're staying elongated and making sure you're standing nice and tall. And once you stretch up and through, that will help keep your core nice and tight anyway. I personally feel vacuums are good, but not on stage.
Yes.
It helps you practice what will be then duplicated on stage, if that makes sense. So obviously a vacuum is when you obviously suck everything in through the core, but if you do that on stage, there's going to be, you know, ribs showing. You're not going to be showing your actual detailing of your core. So I feel like it's just to practice to help you keep your core tight, so you can, do you know what I mean? So you hold for a vacuum, maybe I can't hold vacuums for very long, I'm not very good at them, but I say, for example, 40 seconds. So you could hold your front pose, you know, for that long, 40 seconds, and you advance the vacuum and try and get up to a minute and 2 minutes, all that type of thing. And it's the same with your front pose, so it gets you used to it. So it's almost like an exercise to help you with that versus actually doing it on stage. Because I get that a lot as well, where people are like, shall I vacuum on stage? And I say no, because shows off the rib cage, takes away the detail.
And it also makes your waist wider. It looks smaller from the profile. However, the judges aren't just at the profile angle. There's judges on the left and the right, so the other judges are going to see like a really wider waistline,
and it also is awkward to hold.
It is.
And the face, like we were talking about the overall everything, if you try and vacuum, I mean, when I vacuum, I'm not thinking about anything else, obviously, because I'm just focusing on the vacuum, but trying to do that on stage, you can see in their face they're trying to hold it in, and it's not pretty. So
and then you finally let it go, and it's like
and then that's where the breathing comes in, right? So it's I personally feel like standing up nice and tall and getting used to just holding the core, like not tight as like flexing the abs, but just like a small,
just aware that it's not like
out.
Letting everything hang out.
Because I've seen that before as well, where people will, you know, turn to the back. That's another thing as well. When they turn to the back, obviously they let everything go.
Yeah, because they think, oh, you can't see me.
You can. And also it's when they let everything go in the back pose and then turn around. Like, okay, yes, I sometimes say to girls if they're really struggling, like, okay, you can have a small, like you can use it as a small breather, not to let everything go, but be a bit more relaxed. But when you turn around, as soon as you hear them say, turn around and face the front, tighten up, then turn around. Don't turn around and then tighten up, because I see it so many times where people are like, or it's a smile, where they'll relax everything, you know, in their back pose, turn around and then be like, smile, like halfway through their turning. So it's so I've
done that before.
Yeah, I have as well. So
yeah. And on that subject as well, I feel like a lot of time, a big mistake we see is people that take too long when they're getting compared. Right? So what happens is like girls that take too long in their transitions and they're getting compared is like, what happens is by the time they turn around, they're already saying, okay, to the back. Yeah. You know what I mean? So especially when you're in that comparison round, you need to be quicker than you would be in, let's say, your routine, right? You need to be like quick. You need to be really quick, because they might just say, okay, to the back, and you're not even turned around yet. So I see that happen a lot. Just get to the point, especially when we're getting compared.
Yeah. And I always feel like it's always awkward for the judges when they're like, we want to wait for you, but we're not going to. So you need to kind of like hurry up. And then it throws you off and you're like, oh my goodness, like they're moving really, really quickly, and you get flustered. So it's just making sure that you're just in and out of the poses like we were talking about earlier, just being nice and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question kind of we already answered is the transitioning from back to front is the hardest for me. Would you give her some pointers? Her name is Kayla Johnson. So kind of we already covered it, but if you have any additional pointers transitioning from back to front.
I mean, there's two ways of doing it. I think we discussed
step
this
back,
before.
step forward.
Step back, step forward. So it's just finding which one works better for you. Like so many people find the step back more easier. Some people find the step forwards more easier. I think the step forwards is the easiest way, because I think people stepping forwards and twisting find it easier versus a step back, because step back you can't see or don't know where your foot is going. So sometimes it's balance wise it can be more difficult. It looked at as more advanced, but I mean either way, the judges don't really mind.
Right.
They don't care which one you do, as long as you're showing off your physique still very good, and you're showing off like your shape, condition, everything nicely, and you're presenting it nice and well. That's all that really matters, as long as it's done well.
And I would say as well, in addition to that, is the advantage of stepping forward is if you are somebody that's maybe holding a little more body fat in your glutes, it's probably best to step forward, because stepping back is a little more of a risk, because you might get a little buffled, you might get a little jiggle, but that doesn't tend to happen when you step forward, only when you step back.
Yeah, that's actually that's true. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Tori has a really good way of teaching this too, where she does, she'll like count their steps in their front and 2 back. So it'll be like, she'll go A, B, C, D. And then she's like, now just go D, C, B, A. That's it. So the same thing you did to get into your back pose, just reverse it to the front pose. And that's how she kind of teaches people. So she'll, however many steps it takes, if it's 5, and she'll go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then that's like an easy way for people to get the hang of it. They're like, oh, okay, I can do that. Yeah. And then they can just advance from there and start adding things that they need to. So
totally.
Like
and what you can also do is actually take a video of your transition. And if you just reverse it, you'll find that, that's the back to front to back.
Yeah, it's
literally the same. So that's an idea, and I think that a lot of people overthink that big time. A lot of people overthink the transitions, and it's just the simpler the better. And same thing with walking too. And I think while we're on the subject of it, when we are back walking, I think, I would say my back walk has improved significantly from like last year. Is it the best out there? No, probably not. Definitely not. But it's definitely improved. And I think the biggest reason for that is I stopped overthinking the back walk. Yeah. The back walk, especially for whatever reason, and I don't know why, if you overthink it, it shows. And it's weird because that doesn't tend to happen in the front walk. But in the back walk, it's like you overthink it, and then it just
I think there was a time, I don't know if it was last year or like 2020, or like there was a time where everyone was moving the hips a lot. I mean, they still kind of do now, but there was something that everyone was like, I had an influx of people saying like, oh, how do I move my hips as like more? And I was like, and this was specifically in the back pose, and I was like, if I'm honest, if you have glutes that will not move, that won't, jiggle or whatever, then we can obviously try and add in a little bit more hip movement, but we don't need to add it when you're walking to the back, because you want to try and keep them nice and still. You want to try and make sure that no movement is coming from the glutes. So it's difficult because I think a lot of people think, I need to move my hips as much as I can sometimes in the walk forwards and in the walk back. But like you said, the simpler the better. I literally describe it as you're walking down the street, it's just slightly accentuated. Yes. That's literally it.
Oh, literally. Definitely. I think, that is a big thing that I know the judges we've talked to, they kind of hate it, is like the over exaggerated crossing, like it crosses over so much that it's so inefficient to walk. It's just like the amount of steps they take just to move a little bit forward is crazy, because it's just a whole bunch of crossing to where it gets really distracting, Of course, there will be a little bit of crossing over, but it really shouldn't be that exaggerated to where it takes you forever just to walk 5 feet, It seems
to be the trend. The more elaborate, the less the judges like it, right?
Yeah, because they think that they are, standing out in that sense, and maybe they are, but not in a good way.
No. Yeah, and it is another thing that seems to be common too, is that when one person, like a star athlete, does something, so many follow, even if it's not that's winning it for her, and it's her physique, because that hip thing was like a 2020 thing, big time. Like everyone was like, full rotation.
I mean, I was even the same. I was trying to figure out how I could make my walk a little bit more like, hippie. And then I was like, well, I really don't need to do it as much.
Well, that's the thing, is it happens, and then all these girls are winning, right? And it's the same thing. And I go through it too, and I'm like, well, that's what's going on. That's what's winning. That's what's winning. We got to do it. And then, you go through it and you try and you teach people, and you're learning it and this, that. And then you talk to Sandy or someone, she's like, oh, no, you don't need to do that. I'm like, I spent 8 months working on this.
The thing is, though, all of these trends, they're not even, like, if you think about it, like, the NPC News Online for, amateurs, that's the kind of the pinnacle of anything. And there's none of these trends on there, Yeah. So it's obviously the basics. And I think that's what people forget when they see people do it. They're like, oh, okay, this has to be done. If it's not on the NPC News Online, most of the time really doesn't really need to be done. It accentuates things, yes, but it's not a must-have, And I think that's what a lot of people forget. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. But.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think also along those lines as well, just realize that posing is always changing. Always changing. Even little subtle differences from last year, if you're not paying close attention, you'll be you'll be out of style.
It's like
you know,
6 months. It's totally different.
Exactly. So there's definitely things that you need to keep up on. And I think like too is like even be careful of the videos you're watching. Cause I know even with us, Adam, is like the videos that we done maybe like back in Colorado a few years ago,
totally
that
different.
posing, it doesn't look like that anymore, you know? So you got to be super up to date and study and know your stuff, because if you're off stage for a few years, it definitely shows in your posing. So it's important to realize, like, if you are watching a video to study, like maybe a show, that it's a recent show and not from like a few years ago, because that posing will be different. That posing will be really different.
Girls in my physique assessment stuff that I'll do, and I'll send it back. I'm like, you're kind of posing 2020 style. You're kind of posing like, and it's like I can pinpoint it, you know, like when it was, and it's things have just changed. Like, I really, it's little things all the time, and then over the course of like a year and a half, it's like something major, you know?
Absolutely.
You're like, whoa, that's totally different. Yeah, it's kind of crazy actually how fast it happens.
Yeah.
Show to show. It's like show to show, just arm position, foot position. Like it's just tiny
little
things.
Subtle things. Yeah. Like even from last year, I will say, like, even like the arm positioning from the back pose, I like to call it the scarecrow, was popular last year, where you put like the elbows out, right? That's not a thing this year. And then even like the year before with the front pose, it was like a sloped shoulder down kind of thing. And, you know, little things like that. So just always be aware of the current styles and trends and everything. Cause you don't want to be a style. No. You don't want to be a square.
No.
You don't want to be a square on stage. Awesome. So, finishing up here a little bit, what would you suggest, frequency-wise, a girl would practice their routine?
So I would say it depends, obviously, on where they're at. I mean, always practice regardless, like in an improvement season, obviously when you're in prep, but trying to make sure that you're practicing frequently. So if you're in a prep, for example, and you're 10 weeks out, I would honestly say practice every single day.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 to 15 minutes. You can then advance it and more and more and more. I would say try not practice for hours, because what I found with myself, that I pick up habits, especially in prep. You get prep brain, you're tired, you start to do things differently, inconsistently, and then you pick up bad habits. So I feel like there is such a thing as, practicing for too long, but splitting that up into two, maybe the closer you get to show. Like I like to practice in the evening and then in the morning as well. And a good tip I have for the morning, is I tell my girls, is try and get them to remember to practice. Because sometimes the excuses are, I haven't got time, or I keep forgetting, or whatever. So I say try and, when you wake up in the morning, put your heels in your bikini or practice bikini somewhere you can see it as soon as you wake up. So it's now your choice. You are either going to ignore it and not pose in the morning for like 5-10 minutes, or you're going to do it, and then that's going to be your practice, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a little tip that I kind of like to give over. But frequency wise, honestly, I would say practice every day, especially when you're in prep. It doesn't have to be long. It can then advance. And then if I'm honest, off season, just making sure that you'll keep going through it. So I would say, again, if you wanted to practice after every workout, just go through a few rounds, just so you're not, getting stiff or anything like that, and making sure you're still fluent. Because if you don't practice for a long amount of time, I mean, your body is very much like muscle memory anyway, but it will start to feel rusty, it will start to feel stiff, and it's hard to get back into that. So.
Absolutely. And make sure practice with heels too, because that makes a big difference. And also I want to say as well, like whenever you are, as you're getting leaner in your prep, and you might look a little different and your physique changed, you might have to adjust your posing a little bit, right? So for example, I guess the best example would be like in the back pose, like if you are prepping and you realize, wow, my glutes have gotten really lean, you probably don't have to push as much, right? You might have to soften that up a little bit. So whereas in maybe you were deep into off season, you were pushing just to show the tie-in area. So that's something to keep in mind too, is your posing might change a little bit as you get leaner and you start to see different muscle groups pop that didn't before, and then it becomes too much, and then you need to settle this muscle group down and enhance this muscle. So it, definitely changes. Just be aware.
Yeah, it always changes. And I think that, like you said before, it's just a case of making sure that you're staying accountable.
Yes.
So that's the main thing, is as long as you're staying accountable and you're practicing what needs to be practiced and you're getting like the improvements out of it, that's the main thing.
And practice on different surfaces too, because you don't know what the stage is going to be. Maybe it's carpet, maybe it's like shellac, wooden floor, like a bumpy platform. You don't know. So just practice and be prepared for anything.
And practice in different areas. Sometimes I say as well, like don't practice in the, you can practice in the same kind of area if you wanted to, but sometimes it's good to practice in different environments and like maybe slightly louder environments where, people potentially can see you. Obviously you don't have to be in your bikini and stuff, but trying to replicate a show is something that I always try to say to my girls, because a lot of the times they'll practice. They're like, yep, happy with that. And then it comes to show day, they're like, I got really nervous because there was loads of distractions and there was people watching. And I was like, well, that's something that you have to remember because that's something you're going up there on stage for, Mm-hmm. So trying to practice in different environments, I always think is always good as well.
I have a good tip out there that I'll steal from Anya. What she does is she plays on YouTube. She's got a couple of shows that she has that it's like the whole show prejudging. And so what she does is she goes in the posing room and she plays the show on like full volume. And then she goes through every call out and every routine when Sandy's like, ladies walk to the back, turn to the back, and she's like listening to the cues, and like when they say change position with this girl, like she moves. And so she does it like so she just, and it keeps it fun because there's always a new show posted on YouTube, so she can just play a new show and then kind of watch the show while doing her posing routine and like act like she's there.
I like that. That's
really
a good
smart.
tip.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
actually really smart. Because again, that's something you can't sometimes practice by yourself without, you can just say, oh yeah, the cues, but like actually listening to those cues, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and it's by the people, it's like by the Tyler and Sandy and like those people. So, and then what else you can do? What else can you do to practice posing, Ashley? Do you have any ideas?
I mean,
Phoebe?
I used to just, I did, for example, like my back pose, I would film different, I would keep the camera rolling on my phone and just try different positions with my feet just to see what looks best. And I would yell it out like, okay, I'm turning my toes out slightly. Okay, forward, pushing more, pushing less, and just seeing and going by the video to see what actually looks best, and just slow motioning everything to make sure I got it right.
I think my favorite one, for comparisons anyway, is trying to put an object in the middle of the room and going around it. So like I was talking about before with the posing stamina, posing either side of it and then walking around it. Because I know obviously a question I always get is, how do I move around the girls? How do I swap with people? Because obviously most of the time girls don't practice with people unless they're at a seminar or something like that. So sometimes it's difficult if you don't have anyone to practice with. So I just say, put a chair in the middle of the room, obviously stand on the line and make sure that obviously you're where it would be for a show day. Front pose, move around the chair, hold, move around the chair again. And it looks silly, but it gets you used to being moved around an object, if that makes sense. So you use it as a person, if that makes sense. That's something I try and use anyway.
She does it with a bunch of mannequins. I have a bunch of mannequins at my house right now.
Why?
Ashley, for move around people.
Oh, yeah, of course.
She just sets up a whole thing. It's like 28 girls.
There's
like,
so
I
many
need
people.
70 mannequins to practice for the Olympia.
I need a whole show day scenario to practice. That's what I need.
So we have so Phoebe's in town for 3 months or so. She's staying at the prep house or the prep, whatever you want to call it, Team Elite House, whatever. And I'm getting a lot of questions about that. And I'll be posting that up pretty soon here now that we're coming to an end with the whole staying at the prep house and prep whatnot. But we had to let you guys know because we told you in an earlier podcast that we're going to have posing on November 5th. Well, I talked to Austin Carr yesterday, and he's having his show on the Steve Carr Classic on the November 5th. So we're actually moving our posing class up. So all you girls who are doing the Steve Carr Classic can pose. And that's going to be this Saturday. It's going to be from 11 to 12:30. Ashley's going to be there. Phoebe, I think, is able to make it. Yes. So it's going to be a free posing class. So you guys come out and we could do a show scenario that way. So you don't have to buy 70 mannequins like Phoebe. and it's free for everyone. But you have to be a participant, and it is here. We'll post it on Instagram too. But just so you guys know, I think we're pretty much, this is the end of the podcast at this point, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. So thank you very much for coming in, Phoebe, and doing this. Shout out to Muscle Egg, which keeps Ashley full of eggs.
That gets my shoulders.
I actually tried those for the first time, and they're really good. I've never tried.
I'll give you some.
The only way I can eat eggs.
I really like because I like having like sweet eggs. Like if I would have them anyway, I'd just do egg whites and like whatever. But I actually bought some the other day, and I was like,
oh yeah,
nice.
I'll get you some. They send me some every month too, so I'll get you some.
I really like them. They're nice.
Yeah. Code is muscle egg / Team Elite Physique and
.com.
.com. Yeah.
And .com/.
Yeah. muscleegg.com/Team
Yeah,
Elite Physique.
sorry.
There you go.
It's not a code, it's a link. Sorry,
Yeah, that keeps Ashley full of eggs. And
keeps these shoulders popping like they're full of eggs.
Yeah, full of eggs.
so shout out to them and Trifecta, who's going to be stepping up and helping out at the house too. And yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Oh yeah, you know what we got to do? We got to give shout out to Phoebe, theposingportal.com.
Yes, thank you.
How could we not? Follow
And
her on
Instagram.
Yeah.
At
Phoebe Hagen _ on Instagram. And then if you want any posing or anything like that, just head to theposingportal.com.
Yeah. So, well, thank you very much, Phoebe. We appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye bye.